Hey
Hello,
everyone.
Matt. Hello, everyone.
Hey, set up in our sheds. It's not rainy today, Paul. So we had good weather. It was pouring down a couple of hours ago, but maybe Melbourne is becoming a bit more sunny.
Well, it's a
I
little
know
windy at
we've
my place.
yeah. You mentioned I had the padlock blowing against the shed like before. That was annoying me. But it's calmed down a bit. Um, so today we have quite a bit in store. Cool. We can see some people from Chile. Hi. And let us know where everyone's from today as well. We've got a couple of linked accounts, so we're streaming from the AWS Twitch, but we also have a couple of people from YouTube as well because we've hooked in YouTube today, so that's pretty cool too. So we'll be jumping across the chats. I'll show a couple of messages on the screen. Format of the show though is generally we'll go through some of the announcements this week that kind of excited us. We like to do all of this from our shed or our cabin soon for me. Hey, Nigel, how's it going? And
A few people
Brad
from
from
Melbourne.
Melbourne. A couple of other people from Melbourne. But yeah, so we'll go through the announcements and then we're going to show something in particular. Today should be a really good one, I feel. We're going to work with something that we did prior, a couple of episodes back, and we're going to get a bit more hands-on. I'll rewind. That's the purpose of us being in the shed, is that we can get a bit more hands on the code and tools and a lot of the time IoT. Dallas in Canada, welcome. So what I'll do is I will simply share my screen and we'll go through the latest announcements first. So give me 2 seconds to pull that up. And let me see. This should be it. There are a couple of cool things today. Paul, I think you wanted to talk about this one in particular.
Yeah, so there was this one and one other one that I'll talk about. So some of this might be a little new to some of our viewers, especially if you have a bit of more of a background in app development. You might have spent less time around Systems Manager and what that can provide for your environment, for your AWS environment. That Systems Manager has a number of different mechanisms to help keep your environment compliant and to be able to go ahead and run specific, let's just say, like commands across your fleet of environment. Just pay attention to patch management and be able to see and manage the servers and instances that are running within your account from a centralized or a common pane of glass to be able to view holistically the compute that's running in your environment. And when we think about any sort of organization that has a large footprint, whether that be in the cloud or whether it be anywhere, it's really common to have an environment or a setup where change management becomes really, really important. So when you have an application and you're looking to push out a change or running through specific patches or updates to those environments, you need to be aware when and where that is the best time to go ahead and push those changes out. So there are a number of tools on the market that help you interact and support these types of features. But one of them is the change calendar that's available within Systems Manager. And so what this means is if you had your organization operating and leveraging Systems Manager to be able to roll out patches to your fleet, as an individual team, you can go ahead and set up blackout windows and say, don't roll out patches within these specific windows and time windows, and you allow open windows. And so that might be something like, let's just say for argument's sake, if you were maybe a real estate agency, you'd probably not want a patch to be rolled out or not to have a server reboot during the middle of the day. Lunchtime is probably one of those times where it's traffic is really high, and you might want to offload that to 2 a.m. in the morning or something like that. But you also may have specific blackout days of the year where you say for these specific times of the year that is it is not really appropriate for us to go ahead and run any sort of patching. So we really like to delay our patching around these specific blackout periods. And so you can go ahead and you can set up calendars and blackout windows within Systems Manager to do this for the change calendar. But now this week came a rollout that this is now supported within CloudFormation. So I think that this really shows that going ahead and operating through the console, it's fine. It's it works for organization, has worked in the past to be able to provide that benefit to the teams. But being able to automate that and codify that whole process means that, one, you can track it over time to see how it is. Two, there's no ambiguity around when and where those change calendars were and who had access to go ahead and change it. You can now automate that through a pipeline. So then, and if you have a pipeline, then you can have some sort of governance around who has the approval to go ahead and push that piece out. So I thought this was an interesting piece to come out. I am seeing like many of my customers leveraging what Systems Manager, the whole suite of tools that are around Systems Manager, leveraging that within their account. One other thing that I thought I'll just call out before we go to the next topic is that Systems Manager and Fleet Manager and Patch Manager aren't just for your compute instances in the cloud, but you can go ahead and install these agents on on-premise instances as well. So you can manage patching and patch cycles and SSH directly to those machines, or have access to the file system to those on-premise machines as well. And that's done over a secure channel using the SSM agent.
Yeah, and if you go back for our YouTube channel, we've got like an archive of all the old episodes. I think two weeks ago we talked about Systems Manager for ECS Anywhere. So that was deploying ECS clusters, on premises or on an environment outside of AWS, and then we went through and showed Systems Manager there and how we were managing it remotely.
Yeah, so Systems Manager is the backbone to like almost any of the, what do we call, like hybrid cloud compute support environment. Yeah. So maybe we'll go to the next one.
Yeah, I was going to flick to the next one. I'll put a link in the chat just so everyone can access it if they want to go and read the documentation. We'll have a copy for later. But the next one's Code Guru, so Profiler. Paul, did you want to run through this one?
Yeah, so we've briefly touched on this subject before, and we were thinking about actually going through in more in depth the Code Guru or the dev. Some of the machine learning tools that are supporting developers within an environment. So Amazon Code Guru is one of those. And it comes in two flavors. One is the reviewer, which looks at your code and can automate comments on a pull review process. The second part of what Amazon Guru provides is a profiler. And so the profiler is effectively an agent that runs alongside your application. And what that will do is look at where your application is going ahead and spending its time. What is it doing? What is taking a long time to work? What specific methods are taking a long time? It breaks that down into specific like areas of the code and does some work to try and identify what is your code versus what is a specific library that you may have imported, and identifies where your code is spending a long time. Setting up Code Guru Profiler is, I would say it is not hard. But this announcement has made it much, much easier. So in the past, the way you would go ahead and set up the profile was you can go ahead and start a secondary agent alongside your, let's just say a Java application. So you can start that agent and run it alongside your application, or you can install the dependencies, whether that be through Maven or through pip if it was Python. But then you go ahead and pull those dependencies in, and as part of your application, it effectively spawns off a secondary thread. And then profiles the application. It uses very little CPU, so we've typically seen that using between like 0.1, 0.2, 0.1 of the CPU processing power to profile application, and it takes that information and sends it across to the Code Guru Profiler service, and you can go ahead and look at a breakdown of your application and see, dive into the areas that are taking specific amounts of time. The second way you could go ahead and deploy this. And this is specifically around Lambda functions if you're not going ahead and running that on a container or an EC2. But if you're running it with Lambda functions, the standard way to do that with Lambda is to deploy a Lambda layer. So you provide an additional Lambda layer. You provide to that layer a couple of environment variables, so the profiler group and some other bits and pieces around that. But effectively what that does is, when the Lambda function is ready to start up, it goes ahead and kicks off a bootstrap script that starts the profiler and then goes ahead and invokes your Lambda function. And so this works really, really well. It's really easy. And one of the benefits around running the profiler within Lambda is that not only can it tell you where your program is spending specific amounts of time, but because it understands and knows what Lambda environment you're operating in, it can put a cost allocation against that specific piece of function. So it's really useful to say this piece of the application or this image resizing piece of the application is taking a long time and is costing us X amount of dollars per year. So the way this works now is within the console, and probably later today because we are going to touch some Python, we'll go and show where this appears in the console. But you can go into the console, as long as you've configured the permissions correctly around CodeGuru, you can simply click a button and enable this feature and just turn it on seamlessly. So it's just one additional step to go ahead and to be able to apply CodeGuru Profiler to see like some real metrics around how your application is operating. And this isn't just CPU metrics, but this is like deep diving right into the code level and breakdown of the methods and the functions that you're using within the application. If we're talking about Java, it also is looking at the heap as well. So it's quite insightful there. And just to clarify, we support versions of the Java versions that are running available within Lambda at the moment. And for Python, that is Python 3.8 and up at the moment.
Yep, excellent, Paul. Yeah, we'll definitely be able to show a bit of this off today, just at least the option in the console, because we'll probably be pushing for time. But I do think in future episode on this could be quite interesting. CodeGuru would be quite helpful for me as a developer, to have some extra automation around code reviews. I can have the AI or the computer check my code and tell me what I'm doing wrong rather than Paul. So that would be fantastic.
It also ties into the Bug Bust product that we talked about last week. So, the whole premise of Bug Bust is to use like AI to determine issues in code and pick them out and gamify that whole process. So CodeGuru is the backbone of Bug Bust as well.
Yeah, so I do think we should do an episode on it eventually. We've got enough Python code to run through a lot of this. And actually, Paul, you showed off some Java code a couple of weeks ago as well, so we could have a good play around in one of the sessions. I did see I did see someone call out Mac EC2s. I have been working on a blog to show a build server process for Mac EC2s. It's been a little bit delayed. But maybe that's something we could do in a future episode, because there's a lot of complexity around code signing and just getting up and running, the build servers. And I was just going to tell Shaw, I've mentioned in the chat as well, but just be careful with Mac EC2. They're a little bit costly at the moment, so you want to make sure once you've finished your testing, shut down the dedicated host for now.
I think the having EC2 Mac instances running in EC2 could be like really handy if you needed to be able to spin one up and test it for a short period of time. I mean, we've demonstrated in the past that I personally use Linux workspace for a lot of that environment, and I have a nice performant environment that's separate from my local machine. I'd be really interested.
EC2 is not in workspaces yet, but you can create like a VNC session and use it like you would like a remote computer. So it's good if you're doing like app development and you need to test an app, but you're working on mostly the Android side, so you're working on like Linux or Windows and you don't have access to a Mac. Sometimes happens. I
know that even one of my customers are looking to build some applications that are cross-compiled between Android and iOS, and though developers don't have Macs, so yes, it might be like a little expensive hour for hour, but it's much cheaper than buying 5 development machines when we only need it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be a little more reliable than what I used to do, where I had like a Mac Mini instance running underneath my desk. I'm building, enterprise mobile apps. I had my laptop, but I always use the Mac Mini for the build process, just so I could alleviate some of the pain on my MacBook's fans. Jumping along, the next one that I might actually just quickly paste the link to CodeGuru in case anyone wants to read up as well. So that will come through to you all. But the next one that I wanted to talk about was Cdk Pipelines is now a GA, which is like a really big thing. Both Paul and myself absolutely love Cdk. It's a lot easier than having hundreds of lines of CloudFormation. And you can like programmatically say, if I'm in production, I want to do these things. If I'm in non-production, I want to do those things. The nice thing that I find about Cdk pipelines, but I'll let Paul speak in a second, is, like developers would be creating Cdk CloudFormation assets within their AWS environment. They'd be spinning up like EC2s, S3 buckets, like a bunch of different resources. And some organizations wanted a bit more control around what could be created and what couldn't be created, but also they wanted like things to go through and pass testing before like things were provisioned as well. So CDK Pipeline's really great for that, that step. You can basically have, as part of your build steps, you can create the environment with CDK or revise the environment through CDK, and you can call that during your pipeline to get things spun up in the cloud, and you can check them against like some of the IAM controls that you might have put in place. Yeah, I'm quite excited about this. Paul, I'll let you add in 2 cents because I know you love this as well. You're on mute, Paul.
Sorry, I was on mute. So if you think back to how pipelines might have existed, and and look, it's still really common, but like if you think about Jenkins-based pipelines, and there'd be so many development teams that don't necessarily, they'll go and they'll build out their CI/CD platform in Jenkins, and that won't be automated, or it won't be backed up or provisioned or built in a mechanism that you can effectively treat the CI/CD as, treat it as cattle the same way we would expect to treat our like compute instances on the back end. So Cdk Pipelines is basically means that you can start off with this bootstrapping a tiny little pipeline, and you have the ability to add additional steps through code itself. So you can have a self-mutating pipeline there. So your initial pipeline might have just like, and Matt and I have done some workshops with our customers that have had very, very minimal steps within the pipeline, nothing other than go ahead and clone that repository and go ahead and execute what might be in CDK. But the second step, or the very next commit, is we've codified those pieces of the pipeline that also go ahead and extend the pipeline. So you'll look at the pipeline, you'll deploy some more code, and then all of a sudden your pipeline will be extended to have those pieces as part of that core pipeline as well. And that can be really useful if you've got specific different environments and you want to have that full end-to-end CI/CD process deployed across multiple different environments. That's one benefit of it. The second benefit is you can see the history and the change history of what is occurring within your pipeline as itself, so that when down the track someone says, hey, this thing isn't working anymore, what do we do to configure that? Well, you've codified that whole piece, and you have version control about everything you've done within the area. So I think it's really important and great to see that it's now GA as well.
Yeah, and we talked about it when it was in developer preview as well a couple of episodes back, so it's nice to see it come through. Yep. Now, the next one was Appsync now supports custom authorization. So, Appsync is a GraphQL service that AWS offers. It's different to using API Gateway and Lambda. API Gateway and Lambda, you'd make a series of calls to do a series of things with your service. Like, so if you wanted to call like, a blog and find out who owned the blog and then pull up that user information, you might have to make 3 calls to API Gateway. So 3 REST-based API calls. With GraphQL, you can kind of wrap it all up nicely into one request, and it can aggregate that information and then give it back to you. So Appsync now supports not just API keys or Cognito users for authentication, or IAM users. It now supports like custom auth through Lambda, which is really good because a lot of the customers that we talk to, they want granular rights on the databases that Appsync's, like talking in the background to. But they want to use their current authentication services. So they might want to use their Oktas or their Auth0s or some of those other providers that give authentication as a service. And so through Lambda, they can interact with those. So this is a really cool win. I'm quite excited about this one. And the very last one, because I'm looking at time, we've got a lot of coding to do today, but we're 20 minutes in. The next one was AWS Amplify now supports sign-in with Apple. So we had support for Google, Facebook, Amazon sign-in. You can create your own users, of course, with Cognito directly. But sign-in with Apple is like a really important step for app developers in particular that want to have this enabled for their customers in their mobile apps. But also if the customers log into the web applications as well, later on, they can sign in with their Apple ID password. So it's really good to see another authentication system come in to be supported with Amplify and Cognito. And you can see it's in Sydney, Tokyo, Seoul, and Singapore. So it's and Mumbai as well. So it's been rolled out across a lot of APAC here, which is really nice to see too. Now, the last thing before we kind of get into the topic today was you might have seen that we're a little bit flat last week. We were super busy. You might remember Aaron from the Amazon location episode. He was basically working, the three of us and another guy called Thomas, actually, we were working to create a game within 7 days. And it really turned into like a 48-hour crunch time stint at the end of it. But we were doing quite a few evenings on this particular project as well. So I wanted to quickly show it off so you can see. We have been streaming bits and pieces to our YouTube when we think of something pretty cool in AWS, so we want to show off, or we're doing some IoT work. The dialogue's really bad, and that's because I love bad dialogue and I'm terrible at writing. But it's like basically like this guy from the future, and he's got to find the time machine and get back to his own time. And it's kind of like a Western setting. It's just a really basic platformer. There's lots of bugs. It was only built in like pretty much 7 days. I did all the art as well. So I was working on the art, and I left Aaron and Paul to the hard coding stuff. But yeah, we were kind of wrapped up in this last week. So if you kind of want
to... And just to clarify, that wasn't 7 full days. We did this after work and on the weekend. Yeah,
it ended up being like 48 hours crunch time on like the last weekend, and then a couple of evenings. But yeah, it's pretty cool to do. And we use Python to do it. So there's no real like proper game engine. We just use Pygame and just wrote it with the Pygame library for Python, which like none of us were familiar with. So it was a fun little project to do. So subscribe to the Devs in the Shed YouTube. I might just put a link.
I pasted that in, Matt.
Yeah, that would be great, because we are doing little bits of streaming here and there. We've only got an hour on the AWS channel generally, so we're using it as like a facility to kind of do a bit more when we get excited. The other thing was Paul put out a post on Twitter a couple of hours ago. We made up our minds that we wanted something fun to do today. So we have something really cool coming for Redshift, and we were going to do that today, but the person that we're working with needs a bit more time to bake their plan for what they want to do with Redshift. So we'll hopefully have that Redshift like deep dive hands-on really cool fun session in a couple of weeks, but we had to call it a wait for a little bit. And so today, what we've decided to do very last minute is the rock, paper, scissors app that we built a couple of weeks ago. What we're going to do is we're going to make that serverless. So we wrote it as a Flask application. We deployed it using App Runner in an ECS container a couple of weeks ago. What we're going to do now is we're going to make it serverless because we've had a lot of container-based content. And I think it's time to play with serverless, which Paul and myself love. Now, Paul and myself are really comfortable with SAM. Chalice will be a little bit of a new learning. So you're going to have to bear with us stumble for the next 40 minutes or so as we kind of convert things over. But Chalice is very similar to Flask, I've found, from Python, just looking at it overnight. It basically has a command line interface that you can locally run your Lambdas that you're creating in Chalice before you deploy. And you can also do a Chalice Deploy command to basically zip up and send like what you've produced locally into a Lambda and API gateway. Paul and I have been exploring how it does it because it's super fast compared to SAM. Like SAM might take a couple of minutes to do everything. It runs CloudFormation. Chalice actually seems to have a really cool, unique way of just like getting it all done. And then if you want to bring in SAM or CDK, it has full support for both. So you can actually build out your infrastructure with CDK or SAM and then use your Chalice application for the Lambda side of the equation. So we're going to check it all out. Yeah.
I think that was one of the most surprising things when I first, the very first time I downloaded and followed the how-to with Chalice and I deployed it, I was like, something wasn't right here because it like literally deploys in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, it was like 2 seconds. I'm like, no, wait, no, you got to do your CloudFormation first. What's happening? So yeah, I agree.
And by the way, I posted in the chat that rock, paper, scissors app that we built on Flask, so people can look at the reference product that we used, and then we're going to rebuild that within Chalice.
I might put the link to Chalice up as well. You guys are getting bombarded with links today, so apologies. But if you want to have a read of Chalice in the background as we go for it, feel free to. What I'll do is I'll need to stop my screen share because I've realized I'll need the VS Code and everything shared as well. So I might move you guys a little over so we don't get a Hall of Mirrors effect. Now I'll put you here, and I'll get my full screen shared. So bear with me. There we go. It looks like it's up.
Has anyone in the audience have ever had a look at Chalice or been aware of it? It'd be interesting to hear some feedback, because it's like I was aware of it and I used it and looked at it like a couple of months ago, but it's not something that we hear all the time. Where typically we hear a lot more people working with Python on Flask, or directly building their applications with a fronting with an API gateway and not using a framework on the back end.
Yeah, awesome. So someone hasn't used Chalice, but helps the dev team that does use it. That's cool to see.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to check out, because it just sits in the background, like a lot of people use it, but for some reason we don't hear much about it. Has it? There we go.
There you go.
Yep, I must have cancelled it. One of the cool things about it was like it actually gets like really well maintained. So it's been a project for like 2 or 3 years. It's open source. And you can see that there's regular updates to it. Like yesterday they made changes. I think 5 days ago when I looked at it last, they'd done a push 6 days ago. So it's really actively developed. The community can contribute back to it. So yeah, we'll give it a go. The first thing I do need to do is I need to pull down my code from the devs in the shared RPS Flask repo. And I'll share that across the group. I can see a couple of people are familiar with Flask. No, Chalice. No, that's okay. A couple of people are familiar with Flask. It's very, very similar to Flask. I have not used Fast API, but I've heard some good things about it. So anyways, what I'll do is I will grab that repo. I'll just make sure I'm in my folder on this machine, the git clone. And I'll pull that down and I'll just open up VS Code, and we'll just we'll have a look at like that original repo that I have for the Flask version of the application. So
maybe just zoom your code in a little bit.
Yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit. Is that good enough, or is that I need to go one step more? Okay, cool. So you can see it's fairly simple, right? Like I've got this index page that I'm rendering. I've got this results page that I'm rendering. I've just basically got like the one route, but then there's get and post on it. And then I've got like these 2 little functions that kind of handle everything. And then in my templates folder, I've got like super basic pages. And I think if I was to open that up in the browser again, show everyone that couldn't click on that link what it looks like, if I remember the URL correctly. And my internet hurries up.
Did you do HTTPS, Matt?
I did not do HTTPS. There we go. Hopefully that's a little faster. Yeah, so rock, paper, scissors. You choose like one of them, and you can see, I chose rock. The computer chose scissors. I won over the computer. I feel proud. I can go again. We had a tie, which is paper, and I've lost to the computer. So it's like a super simple app, right? So to move this to Chalice, let's have a look. We'll have a look at the getting started. Yeah, this is it. Now, I think what I will need to do is I will simply need to create a virtual environment, I'm guessing, install the Chalice library. Yeah, here we go. So let's have a look at the quick start. Yeah, so I'd create my virtual environment. I'm working out how I can what I want to do with all this existing stuff, right? Like I'm not going to use App Runner, so I might just clear that out. I'm not going to use.
Just make a folder and drag everything into that folder.
Yeah, maybe that's the easiest way. So I'll just go. Well, if I actually install Chalice first, right, I think the new project command will actually Chalice.
Did you create the virtual
folder for me anyway? Yeah, and then I'll set up a virtual environment in that folder. So here we go. It's pulling it all down.
Hal Lupin made a comment that he said, in his opinion, Chalice makes it a bit confusing. So mixing the code with infrastructure declarations, he prefers to keep those separate. Chalice looks to have the ability to annotate specific methods, and those specific methods, the annotations mean that you can say, like, on an S3 event, go ahead and execute and run this. I haven't looked at that at all. And I thought when I looked at it, that looks handy. It looks like it's a quick and easy way to declare that. But maybe once you get into it, you might find that because it's quite opinionated, you'll lose some of the control that you might have had in the past. So I think that there's like a bit of truth to like keeping those things separate. But I wouldn't want to comment whether or not how I feel about it. I haven't used it to that depth to be able to make that comment. But it's an interesting observation. And maybe like if we play with it a little bit more personally, then we'll be able to like provide some comments and say, yeah, this was really handy to be able to, invoke my Chalice app on an S3 event or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. It could be quite handy. So I've just found in the getting started, there's a command to generate a new project. So I'm just going to run that and create a new project called RPS-Chalice. So it's created me that folder. I'll just CD into that folder. And so it's created an app.py. It's created a requirements for me, and then a .chalice file, and then a gitignore that includes the .chalice file folder. So what I'll do here is now I'm in that folder. What I might do is I might create a virtual environment within. So I never remember this command at all, but I'm just going to go like Python venv, install venv. So I will get that environment up and running. Do I need Python 3? Yep, here we go. So I've got my virtual environment. Now what I might do is I might just reinstall Chalice again, right? So I'll do a pip pre-install Chalice.
Maybe activate that.
I might not have activated the environment just yet, so let me do that. And then let's do the pip install. So it's going to pull that down. And what I might do is I might do an export actually. So pip freeze and write to the requirements file. Basically just doing this to make sure that, yeah, here we go. So all the requirements have been pulled in, that I'm dealing in that virtual environment space, but I can see it here as well in the CLI. So let's just test what this looks like. So let's have a look at the super fast deploy. I think the command is Chalice Deploy to send it up to environment, but you'll see, like, I'll click enter in 3, 2, 1. And that deployment package is only going to take like a few seconds to get up and running, which was super surprising for me.
Especially like the first time takes a second, but this next time will be like unbelievably fast.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So it's creating an IAM role, creating a Lambda function. Just wait for it to do its thing.
I'm pretty sure this is going ahead and using the AWS CLI to do these commands. I don't think it's creating CloudFormation to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, here we go. So we've got a REST API. Hello world. If I change that to person, I go Paul, I'll just pick on you, Paul. And I do a Chalice deploy again. does look like my environment's up and running. It does look like last night it was a little bit faster, actually, thinking about it. Come on. Updating. And here we go, the REST API. And there we go, person Paul. So you can see it deploys fairly quickly. I don't see any CloudFormation being written to any of these folders, right? Really, like it's creating a zip file actually by the look of it. So I think you're right. Because the other thing that we did do is like I had a nose through the AWS console, right? And whenever I want to see what's been created with CloudFormation, I go on here. And I didn't see anything in particular. Here we go. I know Cloud9, that's old. That's something that we must have created. So I don't see anything in there. And I was like, maybe it's written out to a bucket, like maybe it's uploaded a zip file. Couldn't find it either. That's why we suspect that maybe it's just uploading that zip and going for it. Because if I'm definitely in the right region, because if I go here, yep, I'm in Sydney, and I'll just go last modified 1 minute ago. I can see that it's created that that function for me, and it's set up API gateway, but I can't see access to the code because it's probably uploaded a zip, and I saw that the zip was like 10 megabytes, 10.6 megabytes. So
just quickly while you're in the console, Matt, let's just go. Yeah, let's have a look at that extra trigger, that extra switch.
Yeah, so if I go to configuration and then monitoring and operations tools, so to enable code profiling for my 3.8 Lambda that I just created with Chalice, I would just tick this box here. Now, I do need to set up I need to set up an IAM relationship between CodeGuru and Lambda. So I don't have that role permission set up, but if I did have those role permissions set up, it would just be ticking that box and then going for it, and I'd be in good shape. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
So just if you see that, that's when you know what it is. But I think we'll do another session where we'll go into that and have and explore.
Yeah, we should dive into that a lot deeper. So like the next part is like, how do I get my existing app over here? So I might delete all the stuff that's created by default. If I compare it to the Flask app, I probably don't need to bother with the port. I'm not going to be importing Flask, but I'll definitely need the random for the game decision, like to work out whether which selection the computer has had. So I might just paste that up here. I might keep the title and the computer choice options as well. So I might just put them down here maybe. And like I can see that the rendering happens through Flask, and it's using Ginger in the background, Jinga. I've probably completely slaughtered how it's supposed to be pronounced. But I have two routes, right? And the routes look fairly similar, like app route, define index. So what I might do is I might just copy paste this across and then deal with the template in a second. And I might do the same for the post logic. I can ignore the very bottom, like I'm not using Flask, I'm not running it on a server. This is all serverless, right, with Chalice. But I'll grab that other route and I'll paste it down here. So I've got my get route, I've got my post route. One thing that did annoy me, like I want to make it a bit more transparent, that this is the results page. So I might put results here. And I'm sure this isn't going to work right now, right? Because I'm missing Ginger 2. So I'm probably just going to install with pip. The pip or pip3, I always forget. Install Ginger 2, which is the template engine that we want to use. And now I should just be able to do an import Ginger 2. Yep, so we've got like something for templates, right? And what I might do next is work out how to get the rendering happening for this. Because if I do anything now, it's not going to work. Actually, the other thing is I probably need to move over my HTML files for index and result. So one thing that I did notice in Chalice is to do that, I actually needed to create a folder that was like Chalice lib by memory.
Yeah, that's
This
right.
is where the resources that you'd be creating can be stored. So that could be like templates, HTML templates. It could be numerous other things. It won't be the CSS, so I'm going to have to work out what to do with the CSS in a little bit.
That was I sort of fiddled around for a little while working out how I'm supposed to go ahead and upload those templates when I first looked at it. And so it was a bit of exploration to find that. And it's just a convention-based thing. That library is supposed to be called Chalice Lib. So anything you drop into Chalice Lib will be zipped up, packaged, and deployed alongside your application.
Yep. So like what I'm going to do in my HTML file is I'll deal with the style sheet later. So I might just comment it out now. And I'm probably just going to do rock, because we did have that rendering issue last time, right? Rock, paper, scissor. Let's just make it a bit more explicit on the choices. And because I created that different route as well in app.py, I changed it to result. I probably need to go and point to result. So post to the result page. So that looks pretty okay. And then I'll just have a look at like the result HTML. I might just very quickly do the same thing. So I'll just get rid of that style sheet for now. And
for anyone that's not aware or hasn't used something like Flask, I mean, it's very similar to if you were using like Express, Node.js Express, but basically like you can go ahead and set up these templates, which is like, standard HTML, so you can write in what you want to do. And then you can use, you can access like variables from Python directly. And you can also do program constructs, loops, if else, basic logic within the page as well.
Yep. The other thing is I did see in Chalice, there was a debugging library as well that we could use. So I might just go back to main page. So I'll probably be doing a lot of debugging considering I'm not familiar with this, right? So let's go on documentation. Let's go debug. Let's see. Testing. Yeah, okay, so I think by memory, what I did was I did an import of OS, which I'd needed for some file path stuff for grabbing the templates. But I also imported the logging module from Python, if I remember correctly, when I mucked around with this last night. So I've imported those two modules. So these are like core Python modules. And what I might do is I might just put in app.log, and if I remember, set level logging dot, let's go debug. I think that's right. And that way I can see a bit more on my terminal as to what's happening as I muck around with this. I might change the choices to be more in line with like not having that. I love emojis, but they do cause me grief sometimes.
I think that the emojis was around the URL characters. That's what was messing that up. So it might have still worked. Right. We'll try it how it is, but we'll try it back later in the show if we get it to work properly.
Yeah, I just want to change everything just in case I run to like an API gateway issue of rendering or something like fancy. It's like, let's keep it simple to start. Okay, and then the next thing was the render templates. This is the part that I'm going to struggle to remember. So what I want is path, file name. You can see I'm playing with tab 9. I've been playing with GitHub Copilot and tab 9 and a bunch of other products as well, considering they're the latest trend. So getting familiar with those and seeing if I'll be replaced at some point. Probably not, very soon. And then what I want is like a template path, right? So I'm going to point that to my templates. So the template path I'll define in a second. But in this route, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to load directly from Ginger 2, the templates module. I know it's the environments, isn't it? Ginger environment, and then it's going to be a bunch of stuff that I'm going to have to do here. I might just get rid of that now. And Sam wants to jump in, does it? me shut that down. So this is going to be like loader equals ginger2, and then I'm going to use file system loader path or something like that. Is that right? Yep. And then what I might do is I'll do the get template at the end. Get templates, maybe for a file name. And then I'm probably going to have a render context, which might be some values that I want to pass into it. So I've still got a lot to. Why does SAM keep popping up? It might be the auto completion on tab 9, maybe mucking around. So I'm going to return this, but I'm going to have to define that within a render actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we're looking at and we're doing here today is probably a little different than we would. I guess we'll typically not recommend. I wouldn't say I wouldn't recommend, but you will typically see applications that are running within Lambda as like being the API, doing one thing or being the API. What we're doing here is effectively building like a monolith within Lambda, and we're using Chalice to be able to go ahead and deploy that whole monolith. It's a really interesting starting point if you were going ahead and doing some interesting side projects that you wanted to be able to, let's just say, host a blog or a to-do list or a shopping list or some sort of like proof of concept application, and you wanted it packaged all in one. Like this would be a way to go ahead and do that. So effectively building your Flask application within Lambda, and usually, like if you're building some sort of like rich interface, you would have that all built out in React or Vue or Angular or something like that, and that hosted somewhere else in CloudFront, and only interacting with your Lambda backend as an API itself. Whereas here we're going to do all of the server-side rendering directly out of Lambda as well.
Yep. So I'm just going to put the title in here, put brackets around the title, and I'm just going to, this is going to be JSON, so it's going to be formatted a little differently. Yeah, Sam keeps wanting to pop up in the auto completion. It's a pain. Okay, so I've got, now I'm defining my routes essentially. So I've got the gets for index. I've got the context sent for index. And then the next thing that I need to do is I need to define that template, right? So where does that actually sit? So that's going to be template equals render template. I think might be the right
just render, isn't it? You call that method render.
Render.
Yep.
Yeah, let me see. And then so this is then going to point to that like Chalice lib folder, right?
Yep.
And did I just call it template or templates? I
think you call templates.
So let's go templates. And then this is going to be, that's the path. And then I'm going to go like index.html, right? But I also need to send it the context as well. So I've got that title that's defined here.
So the way that works for people that have not used Ginger before is effectively it's just to like find and replace those specific values. And so within the context is an object that has it's a list of specific values, and it says when it finds something in that template, like that index.html file, go ahead and swap out the two squiggly brackets title with what the value of title is that's been passed in the context. And it's important to note that it's specifically looking for that object called context. So be aware of the way you're passing that around.
Yeah, that's right. And then what I'm doing now is I'm just like doing the return response. So response is part of the Chalice framework, if I remember correctly. So I'll just add that library in, and that'll get rid of the little red squiggles that I've got underneath, of course. So in there, I'm passing the template that we've defined above, the status code of 200 for success through API gateway. And then I'm going to have to put in some headers, right? So the content type is going to be, text HTML. And I think the other thing that we found was we needed like an access control thing, Paul, when I looked at like an example that you were playing with to allow all the origins, is that right?
I think that we probably don't need that, but that would be if you wanted for cause. Yeah.
Yeah. And would we be doing cores for the S3 content later? Probably not.
No.
Maybe
This would be more that somebody was reaching into this. So if you were building as an API, then you would want to define the domain names that you want to allow cross-domain access to. So I don't think that's required.
Yeah, let's leave that out then. Just make it a bit simpler.
I reckon now, Matt, if you commented out that code, you could deploy
I was
that
just about to do that. I was like, let's give it a run, right? Let's see how we've progressed. So I'll do another Chalice deploy, and hopefully we're looking pretty good. It's always a squeeze to get this into an hour, especially when we spend 20 minutes covering new features. We need to release less so we can do more time on the code and the fun stuff sometimes. So let's have a look. Probably going to get a whole bunch of errors if I hit the HTML, like one of the buttons on that page, because there's nothing to do with the result that we've done so far other than create that result HTML file. Probably need in the context, I'm probably going to have to add choice and computer choice in as well. But I'll worry about that in a second, right? And the result's probably going to be a lot faster as well, because it's probably going to be like a lot of just like copy pasta, right?
Yeah, but I think at the moment it's not working. I think it's getting an internal server out. Ginger 2. Did we pip install Ginger 2 into locally, or did you? Did you not do that?
I didn't write it into the requirements folder. So maybe what I do need to do is I put freeze and requirements text. So the other thing is I don't need to do a deploy every time, right? Like I know we're doing a deploy now, as you can see in the bottom of the console, but if I could actually run this local and test locally prior, and I think the command for that, if I remember, is like Chalice local. So we could try that in a second, because it might be a little bit faster than deploy. Let's have a look at this page though. Here we go. I reckon this is going to be still an issue. It's okay.
It's something to do with Ginger 2. It's not being imported properly.
It's missing favicons. That's okay.
Let's have a look at your
I might be able to get more if I run it local, right? So I'll just go Chalice local, because I think I'll get debugging on the console because I'm importing that logging library.
Just have a look, Matt, at your requirements file.
Here we go. No, I know. So running it locally exposed that URL4 is undefined, right? And that was something that I was using for the redirects with Ginger 2 and Flask, but URL4 is actually a Flask lib, and I think that's embedded in the HTML files. So even though it's commented out, it was still looking at that. Oh, of course, yeah. So Ginger must be ignoring the comments and trying to parse it out anyway. Yeah, it must be. So this is why it's handy to test locally, right? This is why I liked local mode for this, right? So if I did that, do I get the server error now? No, I actually get the page. So it looks like that's working for me, right? So of course, results not going to work yet. Like we knew that would happen. But what we can do is we could do a Chalice deploy and then just make sure this is working on API Gateway and Lambda. So fingers crossed. And SAM, you can do this as well, right? Like you can run things locally with SAM too. So that's really great.
Yeah.
How's the chat going? Any questions so far in the chat while we're waiting for it to push?
There was a question here from Hello Lupin. Is it possible to use Chalice event handler decorators without it creating the event triggers? Honestly, like I can't answer that. I haven't, like Matt and I both basically decided what are we going to do if our guest speaker can't make it tomorrow, like late last night. And so we basically just had a quick win through last night in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, like winging it on Chalice. We both wanted to we both really wanted to play with Chalice, and it was like, because what we'd planned for Redshift had to be moved to next month, but it's going to be fantastic when it happens. I'm really eager to show you guys. We were like, okay, it's the perfect excuse to play with Chalice overnight. So we're not experts in this just yet. But part of the show was to stumble and show people like our learning process as we work through problems as well, right?
And I wonder whether, hello Lupin, are you asking whether you could leave the topic empty and pass that in at runtime? So I wonder. Oh, he does like
empty.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not exactly 100% sure what he's asking, but I mean, the way it looks like is, it looks like using that annotation or like something like this to say, like, this type of annotation provides a lot of abstraction away from your code. So this would be really easy to be able to, piece up and put together with using Chalice.
Yep. Yeah. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to work on the post method for the result. Like, this logic's all going to stay the same probably, but what we probably need to do is define the template, the context, and all this kind of same stuff, right? So it's almost like a copy paster over top of this. But then we're probably gonna import the results.html. And in the context, we're probably going to have additional context, right? Like, because there's some logic that's going to be worked out here. We're going to get the choice fed back from the form, but this form element was specific to the requests library, and that's not going to be available in Chalice. So we're going to have to do some stuff here to get what we need to do, right? So if I go back to the Chalice documentation, there was a way to do it. There was, just trying to have a think. There was like this pass event. So I'm just going to have a scan. Let me have a see if I can find it. It's not what I'm looking for. Let's scan down. I think I did a Google last time to fix it. But basically, I was hoping I could show you guys what to do. But in this, right, basically, I created this extra thing at the top called past info. So it's just a variable. And then there was basically the ability to do like a pass of what happened on the index page. So I think it was pass.qs. I'm just having a look at my notes as well to try and remember. And that would probably need to be loaded in as part of, I think it was a feature in URL lib that we're going to import. So I'm going to do like a from URL lib, and I'm going to import URL pass in Python, and I'm going to import pass QS. So this is how I think I did it last night. So I've added that in. I'll just clean this up. I want random on the same line. So I've got all the other random stuff added there. And
it's interesting that comes from URL lib, where that's in a form, but not on the URL.
Yeah, I think it was a trusty Stack Overflow. It was like, how do you get the past object like using Chalice? And someone was like, use URL lib .pass library. So I was like, okay. So like what we want to do here, right, is where we want to take the app.current request, and we're probably going to have to take the raw body into code. So raw body and dot decode, and then that's a function I'm calling. And so the past info is going to equal all of that, and so that probably means that the choice is probably going to be like that, right? In a sense, Now I have a feeling this gave me grief last night because this comes back, like if I did a print of choice, I ran this locally, I think it comes back as like a dictionary or something, or a list. Let's just
So
check.
the number, the whole body itself is being put through.
Yeah. So that's not working quite yet. Let me
Do you have to stop and restart for it to load?
It auto reloads whenever I save the code, which is quite a nice step.
Okay.
So I've got the results, I've got post.
Yeah, Hello Lupin sort of gave a summary of why that's probably exactly what is happening.
Yep.
So the body payload is sent by multipart form, which it is because it's a form.
Yep.
And so it has the same form as query string, so you can parse it out. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
So, yeah, no, that's handy. So what I could do is I could actually probably do like rather than it equal past info, right? I could do a past get and then the choice element from that post. And I could call it past. So to do that, I'm probably going to need to have past variable, and I'll use that past QS thingo that I imported beforehand. Very technical wording there. No, that's the same as past info. What am I doing? Past info.get. Let's see what that looks like. I still reckon it's going to come through as a list. I think I have to do one more step to make it not a list. It's not showing in my logs. That's okay. Let's work through the rest of it very quickly first. So the content type's definitely going to have a change. Like that's one thing that I'm certain of with this example, right? For the results, I'm probably going to need to put a content type up in the route, if I remember. So I've got my method. If I go content type, and rather than an equal application.json, I might make it a equal application x form URL encoded. So let's have a look, and I think it's going to be content types and square brackets.
So maybe that's what it was missing on why it was not extracting anything out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, so it's coming up with a page, right? Am I getting the data back from my print statement? Yeah, so it is in a list. I chose paper. So with that choice,
so that must be all the elements of the specific form. But the content type there was what was holding us up before. So this is saying now we're expecting that specific content type.
Yeah, that's right. So what I'll probably do is I might actually make a choice variable, and I'll just call this like choice
raw or something.
Right? Yeah, raw's a good term. Let's just use that. And this is probably going to be like .join in Python. Maybe that's what I want. And then I'll just pass in choice.raw. So that actually should automatically convert it to a string and then take it out of the list. I can check that actually. Just I should have left the print in there.
If it's a list, can't you just get the first index?
You could do that as well. So if I go back, paper. So that's looking good.
Yep.
So I've got choice, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to pass all the stuff that I've created. So the choice is going to have to go through as part of the context for the decisioning to be made on the results page. So like in the results page, you can see I've got choice, computer choice, and outcome. So I probably need to feed all three of these in. So computer choice and outcome. And I'll just put and outcome equals that. And probably need to add in some nice little commas. I think that's going to work now. So these are variable. I don't need to wrap them into a string. Let's give it a go. Let's see if this works locally. Let's see if I'm in luck. Chalice local. Let's go to the local page. I'm going to choose rock. I chose rock, so rocks come through. The computer chose paper, so I know that the computer's choice is going through. And the outcome took my logic. Where did I find within this really nice series of if statements. Aaron actually did show me, and I know we're running out of time, but Aaron kind of wanted to play with rock, paper, scissors in generic Python, so this wasn't with Flask or anything like that, but he wanted to show me the way that he did his logic. So he actually did lizard Spock, something that I wanted to add in, but I never had time back when we were doing the live stream with the Flask app. But he had lizard Spock there, and he's got his decisioning there. If I was using Python 3.10, I think it supports switch statements. So rather than using a series of ifs and logic, I would probably use switch statements myself. But this was Aaron's way of doing it as well, which is quite nice. But that all looks like it works. And I know we're really just on time. So what I might do is I might do a Chalice deploy and see if this works again with API Gateway and Lambda.
The very last thing that I would be, if we've got a sec, Matt, would be to put those emojis back in.
Yeah, we can test the emojis.
I reckon it'll work.
Okay.
If anyone in the audience wants to play, I'll paste it in that link so you can go ahead and have a go.
I actually reckon it's going to break. That's my bet. I have a feeling I know what we're going to run to next.
You know what it is? I know what the problem is. It's because we got a stage. Yeah, because we have a stage. So remember, for anybody that's worked with API Gateway, unless you're using a custom domain name, you have the stage in front of it. Another way around having a custom domain name, if you want to do that, is you can use CloudFront and point CloudFront directly to API Gateway as well. So if you've got a custom domain name in CloudFront, you can go ahead and route it through that way. But otherwise, yeah, it's a stage. So that will be the post page needs /API in there.
Yeah. Correct.
Quickly change to deploy that again.
See how it like stripped off the API?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I want to do there is I probably
want
to
just delete the / result, right?
Well, I could just do that, right?
Yep.
So on the form action in the index, and then I'm going to map back, right? So I probably need to map back to index through on the result page as well.
Yep.
If I do a redeploy, let's have a look. Shut down all these variations. And it should be like 1 second away. Command. Okay. So if I choose rock, does it go to the rock page on API Gateway? It does. So just putting in the /API/result, you'd want to do that programmatically, though. If you've got multiple stages with API Gateway in the future, like you've got a prod and a UAT stage as well, staging for your API. But for a very quick and nasty way of doing it, this works. So
look, if you were building this app, you'd probably be pointing your own custom domain name at it anyway. So it might be less of a problem.
Yeah, that's true. Now, the other thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to bring back in the classical choices, right? So just going back to the app runner project, and I'm just going to paste rock over rock. We're going to see if we can get it working with the emojis, just because emojis are like 10 times cooler than just text. And my scissors. So I've got rock, paper, scissors there. That's going to be passed back to my app.py. So this is probably where I'm going to do a find and replace, right? So I'm going to place rock with rock in my app.py, and I'm in the right one. So, yep. Let's replace all. And then we'll do the same for scissors. but we will find the scissors emoji. And we'll go on here and we'll place all, and then paper. Let's do the same. So paper, and let's make sure that we didn't miss anything. So in the title, it's come. The computer choices, it looks like it's all there. So let's save that, and then let's do a deploy again and see.
Did you change it in the result template as well?
The result templates.
Oh, no, it's passed through. Yep.
It's just passed through, right? So it
Yep.
doesn't need a change. So let's have a look. Hope everyone's enjoying the session. I know we've gone a little bit over, but I thought this was quite a fun one, and I really wanted to play with Chalice. Been quite eager to. We've got a bunch of stuff lined up for the next month, including that Redshift thing that we were to have this week. Give us a ooh.
It didn't work.
It didn't work, but that makes perfect sense. Oi, ayu, aoe, ai. So the game's still going to work.
Passing through those or serving up UTF-8 character sets.
Yeah, that's right. I wonder if I can just like pass UTF as a flag on the app routes. I don't know. Let's go Chalice UTF-8. Let's see if we can fix this with.
You can do content types char set UTF-8. So where you've got your content type that you're passing back.
Yep. So within that, I could go like UTF-8 here.
So, yep. Actually, it's where did I have it? So your content type. Kind of like this, man. I'll try and paste it to you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Content encoding header. Yeah. It's a character set. Yep. Okay. So if I do that here.
Yeah, it's more like all in the same block. So backspace twice. Again. Where it's got that form URL encoded, just backspace that out a little bit. That'll receive it.
You mean like wrapped in here?
Yeah, like that. And then
okay.
The separator, you need the token separator, like the semicolon at the end. Yeah.
Yep. So
I think that will receive it that way. How it will serve it up, we'll have to look at that. That should definitely receive it. So we'll see what. I'm not 100% sure that's going to serve it up that way, though.
Yep. I'm just wondering.
So see how you've got the content type there, text HTML? Maybe you should put that char set at the end of that as well. Yeah.
So put it like that. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah, and then I'm probably going to have to do something in the routes, right, is what I'm thinking.
I don't think so. I think the route will be fine. I think that'll be okay. You might need to do it for the very first one, though. Because see, the first one is rendering not correctly either. Yep. I don't know if this will work, but we'll see. And if it doesn't, then we're already a little bit over time this week. I checked the schedule. There's nobody after us. So.
Okay.
Yep.
And
yeah, just go ahead and redeploy that. Don't change that. Yeah, I think leave that.
Keep as is. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's nearly working.
Nearly working. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if you guys want, if you want particular things, call out in the chat for the next couple of weeks. We do air 12 o'clock AEST time, so Melbourne lunchtime on Wednesdays every week. But we also do ad hoc videos on the YouTube, right? So if you guys want to see something in particular, we can. I think we've just broken it a bit more, though. Unsupported media type
Jason,
application,
did you
Jason.
accidentally paste that in somewhere?
Well, what I can take is this out of the main page, right? Just set the character set. I didn't actually have content types defined.
Yeah, I don't think you need that. Yeah, I think that would be okay.
Let's give it a go. And fingers crossed, I'm hungry and I've got work meetings in 45 minutes.
I think we messed something up there.
We can fix that up over time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we might do a secondary stream off the AWS Twitch session later in the week and go through fixing it all up. So for people that are in the audience, go ahead and subscribe to us. So we have our own. So Hello Luke must have got it exactly at that moment when it kind of worked and then kind of didn't. Because it did look like it was working for me, and then we did something and broke it. But I think Matt and I can probably go ahead and finish this off, and maybe we'll either do that tonight or tomorrow night or something. So go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and as well as Twitch, and we'll do that off the AWS channel.
Yeah, and if we have time, we can add in Lizard Spock as well, because I know a lot of people want Lizard Spock, and I did want to do that last time. Excellent. Well, let's finish up the stream then. I'll stop my screen sharing and I'll drag you guys back, so I'm not looking at the second monitor. There we go. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this was a fun session. I hope you guys learned a little bit about Chalice and enjoyed watching us learn about Chalice at the same time. And I can see Original Speed still was helping out as well. So that might be the way to go. I'll give that a go in a second. But for now, we'll wrap it up and we'll be on the YouTube later and try and fix it.
All right. Take care, everyone. See you all next week.
Thanks,
Don't
everyone.
hesitate to reach out. See you all. Bye.